Chesnaught has just reached #1 in the world in Gen 9 OU, thanks to the player Sanessa, building a team around this forgotten starter Pokemon, and seeing far more success with it than anyone expected. Gen 9 OU is one of the most power-crept metagames of all time, so it is very unexpected to see this starter Pokemon that wasn't even good back in Gen 6 when it came out, see such success in Gen 9 OU. So why is this being used? Why did Sanessa choose Chesnaught for this team, and why is it working so well? Let's get to the bottom of this. But first, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, and hype this video if you're able to, for more updates on the recent regime change of the world, the government. Thank you. So what is Chesnaught's deal? What does this guy do? Chesnaught is a rather interesting defensive utility Pokemon. It has a grass fighting typing, which is not too bad defensively. Some nice resistances there. And Chesnaught has such options as Spikes, Spiky Shield, Leech Seed. It is a tank. It has a good defense stat of 122. A workable HP stat of 88. So it's a physically defensive utility Pokemon themed around having some spiky armor on. And they've played into that theming more with its ability, which is bulletproof. A fitting ability, I think. Chesnaught looks like he would be impervious to mere bullets with that strong outer shell. Bulletproof is an ability that I quite enjoy, offering an immunity to bullet-based moves and ballistic moves, which is actually a lot of common moves. Some of the big ones include Shadow Ball, Sludge Bomb, Bullet Seed, and Rock Blast. These are not random moves, these are common competitive moves, and immunity to them can be very useful, especially Shadow Ball, the most popular ghost type attack in the game. I'd say immunity to Shadow Ball is probably the most important immunity offered by the ability Bulletproof. But even with all that going for Chesnaught, a place in the big leagues of the OU format, we're always out of the question for this fella. A grass fighting typing has its benefits, but there are also some real defensive shortcomings with this typing, especially at times for weakness to flying, and fire and ice weaknesses which are not fantastic. Fairy and psychic weaknesses hurt as well. This typing is vulnerable to a lot, actually. Chesnaught has workable defensive stats, but they are not particularly excellent, especially not for the high bar of the OU metagame, and that was true even back in Gen 6. Chesnaught has also faced serious competition with one of the most successful competitive Pokemon of all time, Ferrothorn. Ferrothorn is another grass type, but it has the superior grass-steel type combination, has better stats, a superior ability overall in Iron Barbs, and even more utility options that Chesnaught lacks. They fill a similar space as physically defensive grass types, but Ferrothorn is most of the time just going to be the superior choice, giving Chesnaught a difficult rival to overcome indeed. Of all Chesnaught's shortcomings, I think that simply just existing at the same time as Ferrothorn was the worst of them all. In Generation 9 though, Chesnaught received a pretty significant new buff, and that was access to the move Body Press. Body Press is a fighting type physical attack that deals damage based on your defense stat rather than your attack stat. Chesnaught is a prime user of this move. It has stab damage on fighting type attacks, and it has an excellent defense stat. Now you can invest fully in physical defense on Chesnaught, and also dish out some serious damage thanks to Body Press. It's a perfect new option and a really nice new buff for Chesnaught. Chesnaught also appreciates the fact that, guess what? Ferrothorn is not in Gen 9. That damnable Ferrothorn that was taking your job as a spiky grass type with spikes on it. And his spikes are so much better than your spikes, aren't they, Chesnaught? But now he's gone. Some theorize that Chesnaught actually engaged in a bit of foul play and took care of Ferrothorn with some underhanded tactics, you could say. Made him an offer he can't refuse, so to speak. I don't know if there's any evidence to back that up. Chesnaught doesn't seem like the kind of fella to do a thing like that, but you never know with the building resentment that these two had for one another, and also the insult of being cut from the Gen 8 Pokedex really put Chesnaught in a dangerous position. In a dangerous position indeed. But regardless, Chesnaught is now in Gen 9, while Ferrothorn is, as it stands, missing. We don't know where he is. This means that Chesnaught's role as a physically defensive, bulky grass type with such options as spikes and this new body press feels more valuable here. But is that enough to give Chesnaught a reason to exist on a Gen 9 OU team? It's still a very competitive world, the Chesnaught. You may have taken out your biggest competitor, but Gen 9 is a whole new world. We have unspeakable creatures like Goldango in here, and Iron Valiant, and the ancient beast Great Tusk, and people like this. Chesnaught feels out of his depth still. But the player Sanessa believed Chesnaught to be underexplored and underrated in the Gen 9 OU format for some very real reasons. This is not somebody forcing a Pokemon they like onto a competitive team just because they like them and for no other reason. Chesnaught's actually doing some real stuff here, and has some positive matchups. Chesnaught is pretty damn excellent against King Gambit. Chesnaught, of course, has a dark resistance and that stab body press that threatens to one-hit KO King Gambit easily. It's great into it defensively and offensively. King Gambit can still hit Chesnaught with stab Iron Head, but Chesnaught has great physical defense. It can stomach that kind of thing. And the follow-up body press will prove lethal if King Gambit dares to be such a fool and fight Chesnaught on his home turf. Chesnaught's great matchups against popular OU Pokemon don't end there. Ogerpon Wellspring has been one of the most difficult fellas to answer in Gen 9 OU, and a real problem Pokemon that a lot of people think is too powerful, but Chesnaught is pretty fantastic against it. A physical defensive grass type is exactly what you need against Ogerpon Wellspring, who uses primarily water type physical attacks and grass type physical attacks. Chesnaught resists both stabs and deals considerable damage with a follow-up body press. Ogerpon Wellspring can carry Play Rough for coverage to hit Chesnaught, but Chesnaught can stomach such a thing, and not every set has that. So I would say Chesnaught does match up well against Ogerpon Wellspring. And there's also Great Tusk. Chesnaught has the physical bulk to take on Great Tusk, and it has that crucial ground resistance. There's Ice Spinner for coverage, but once again, Chesnaught has great physical bulk and can go all in on the physical bulk since it has body press for its attack. With Synthesis for healing as well, Chesnaught probably wins the 1v1 against a Great Tusk, and that's huge. That's the most common Pokemon in Gen 9 OU. So positive matchups against Great Tusk, Ogerpon Wellspring, and King Gambit are already sounding fantastic for Chesnaught. That is a pretty great series of positive matchups to have right there. But there's also the fact that Chesnaught's ability Bulletproof feels more useful than ever in this metagame. Shadow Ball is an ever-present move in most competitive singles formats, but I feel like Shadow Ball spam might be at an all-time high in Gen 9 OU, with Goldango and Dragapult being absolutely everywhere. Immunity to Shadow Ball is more useful than ever. Sludge Bomb immunity also really comes in handy. I mean, you're weak to poison, so being immune to one of the most common poison type attacks is huge. Not many grass types can have that privilege. But also Slowking Galar is incredibly common, and probably the main way it's going to try to hit you is with Sludge Bomb. How convenient that you are completely immune to its most common poison type stab move. It's going to have to hope it's carrying Flamethrower or Ice Beam. Not every Slowking Galar carries that. Sometimes you can be a grass type that matches up well against Galarian Slowking, thanks to your Bulletproof trait. That's certainly auspicious for Chesnaught. And another massive one that I didn't even think about until I read this thread from Sanessa here is Cinderace. Cinderace has the move Pyro Ball, a signature move. Its main form of fighting type physical stab, and it is a really powerful attack with 120 base power. But it's a ball based move, of course it is. It's a soccer ball kick of flames. Chesnaught is completely immune to such a thing. And that's huge as a grass type to be immune to a whole fire stab move on one of the most popular fire types in OU right now. I mean, these are not niche matchups we're talking about. These are some of the most common Pokemon in the game using their primary attacks. The bulletproof immunities that Chesnaught provides to a team are huge here. So that is all just fantastic news for Chesnaught right there, as well as the absence of Ferrothorn really helping. When you search grass type in the builder here, there isn't really a good physically defensive grass type in the game besides Chesnaught. Some other ones that you see in OU from time to time are Hydrapple and Sinistcha. These are good, bulky grass types that can lean physically defensive. But they certainly occupy a different space to Chesnaught. They have different typing. Sinistcha has the Calm Mind win condition set at Strength Sap and just other options. The burn spreading, the special attack. Hydrapple is a regenerator Pokemon. Sometimes they use Sticky Hold too. Chesnaught occupies a different area and feels pretty distinct from these other options. And that's especially true thanks to its move pool with the crucial spikes. The best hazard in the game right now, I would say. Knockoff is just always a fantastic move to have. For the item removal, for the dark coverage, especially since you're relying on body press, so hitting Ghost is always great. And then you just have the straightforward synthesis to heal. What more do you need on a physical utility Pokemon? This is perfect. And another option Chesnaught has if it wants to be a bit of a win condition is Iron Defense. To boost the power of body press, which is perfect. Can be like a little mini Zamazenta, can't you? Honestly, as I go over all these advantages that Chesnaught has, despite its low stats, and despite its RU ranking, I can't help but wonder, why aren't more people using this? It seems pretty great. It actually sort of does feel like Ferrothorn Jr., which is a compliment, I think. And with the rise of Ogerpon Wellspring and the ever-presence of Kingambit and Great Tusk, I feel like Chesnaught is an astute pick. It's solving a lot of problems. It is a favorable choice for the current Gen 9 OU metagame. But Chesnaught is not the only novel Pokemon choice on this team, and I really want to shout out another Pokemon being used on this team that also raised an eyebrow for me. This team features not only Chesnaught, but Bronzong. Now, Bronzong is a Pokemon that once had a respectable competitive presence back in Gen 4 OU when it debuted. It was pretty fantastic, actually. Its Stealth Rock and Explosion set, the powerful Gyro Ball were a new option at the time. Even in Gen 5 OU, it had its viability here and there, but Bronzong really feels like it has fallen off in recent years, and I haven't seen it or thought about it much in quite a while. It doesn't feel like it should belong in Gen 9 OU. It feels like an outdated Pokemon from a time long past. And Bronzong is currently ranked even lower than Chesnaught in the NU tier, so why has this player decided on Bronzong? Is Bronzong their favorite? Do they have a Bronzong bias? Are they doing a favor to a family member of Bronzong, putting him on the team just to give him something to do? No, Bronzong is being used here for actual valid reasons as well. You see, Sanessa here realized that Bronzong actually works very well as a Stealth Rock setter in the Gen 9 OU metagame because of its matchups into common anti-hazard Pokemon. The first big one is Hatterene, who is a popular Pokemon in Gen 9 OU for its ability Magic Bounce, which bounces back hazards to the other side of the field, and to various other things, but mostly and primarily hazards. Magic Bounce is great anti-hazard technology, but if your hazard setter threatens Hatterene with lethal force, then Hatterene is not exactly going to be thrilled about switching into this. And that's exactly what Bronzong does with its Stab Iron Head, which hits Hatterene super effectively. Bronzong also matches up pretty nicely against the Elephants, the Great Tusk and Iron Treads, because it is a Steel type with the ability Levitate. Levitate, of course, granting a complete immunity to ground. So Bronzong is not worried about any ground type attacks whatsoever from these two grounded Elephants. It's not worried about ice coverage or Steel type attacks from Iron Treads. It is neutral to close combat, and it has the bulk to stomach such a thing, and it can take at least one knockoff as well. And Bronzong has super effective Psychic type damage to hit Great Tusk with. It's got Psychic Noise, which is a nice Psychic type special attack with 75 power that also has the added benefit of preventing healing on the enemy Pokemon. So that's got added benefits in other matchups. You could use that on a Blissey or a Dondozo or something passive like that to cut its healing, and it's also Psychic coverage and Psychic Stab, which hits Great Tusk for fantastic damage. And then Bronzong here is carrying Earthquake as a way to hit Iron Treads. Bronzong also has a nice matchup against Glamora, one of the better aggro hazard setting Pokemon of Gen 9 OU. Every single attack on this moveset hits Glamora super effectively. You're probably going to go for Psychic Noise though to avoid creating the toxic debris. And Sanessa also realized something else great about Bronzong. I mean, this is good enough. It's got Stealth Rock and it matches up well against a lot of common anti-hazard Pokemon in the metagame. And it functions well as a lead. That's already great. But also, Bronzong is one of the few things that can reliably defend against Cura. in Gen 9 OU. Kyurem has been one of the most popular and dominant Pokemon of Gen 9 OU, thanks to its brutal ice and ground coverage combination. These types, of course, complement one another perfectly, and it really helps that Kyurem has access to freeze dry, so even water types are not going to love coming in on your ice type attack in that case, because freeze dry hits water types super effectively. Bronzong is a good Kyurem switch in because of its ice resistance and ground immunity, and I don't believe Kyurem gets any other coverage that hits Bronzong. Your defenses are good enough to withstand hits from Kyurem, and you can even threaten it very well with your super effective stab Iron Head, which is just beautiful. Honestly, I think that alone is enough to justify the Bronzong choice, the reliable Kyurem answer. It really is good against Kyurem, and that's a very important box to tick. On top of that, Bronzong is effective against many Dragonite sets. Dragonite has been popular all throughout Gen 9 OU as a premier Terra abuser in general, just strong Pokemon of course. And Bronzong will operate very well against many Dragonite sets, as Dragonite often relies on the move Extreme Speed and the move Earthquake to threaten most things, but Bronzong resists Extreme Speed and is immune to Earthquake. A Dragonite can carry Fire Punch, and in that case the Dragonite will have a way to threaten Bronzong, but many Dragonite sets do not. They opt for options like Ice Spinner and Iron Head and other coverage. Now, I would never say that Bronzong is a hard counter to Dragonite anything, but being able to completely stonewall a lot of Dragonite sets is a massive tick in Bronzong's favor. Any Dragonite set not carrying Fire Punch pretty much will be destroyed by this Bronzong, which is massive. I think that these two Pokemon choices here from Sanessa are quite forward-thinking and creative. The rest of the team here is a pretty standard Spikes balance, with Clodsire as the Spike setter, Goldengo of course to block Rapid Spin and Defog from taking effect. Chesnaught is running an Iron defense set because of course Clodsire is running Spikes, meaning Chesnaught is doing a good defensive job and can be a win condition. You have Pecharunt for its great defensive value and as a nice parting shot pivot. And then Weavile as a little bit of physical damage output, which is much needed on the team. I think this team is brilliant, with two very astute and forward-thinking Pokemon choices in Bronzong and Chesnaught, which are not just here for a joke. They have genuine value in the metagame and are surprisingly effective at their jobs, and filling roles that no other Pokemon in the metagame can fill. Now I'm thinking to myself that maybe Bronzong and Chesnaught worked together to get Ferrothorn out of the picture. Both of these guys have reasons to dislike Ferrothorn. Both of them had their jobs taken by Ferrothorn a little bit. Both have a motive. Now I'm starting to be a bit suspicious of these two. If you think about it, Bronzong and Chesnaught together are kind of forming their own Ferrothorn, stripped into two consciousnesses. Bronzong is the steel portion and Chesnaught is the glass portion. Together, they fuse and become Ferrothorn again, but now they're separated. This is what happens when you don't put Ferrothorn in the game, Game Freak. We get the bizarre Bronzong Chesnaught core. Okay, is this the future you want? Is this the future you want, Game Freak? Maybe it is. Maybe this is a very positive thing. And maybe Ferrothorn can stay gone, so we can keep the Bronzong Chesnaught core moving forward. It's going to be a new mainstay, I feel. Why don't we take a look at the team in action on the high ladder? What a treat to see a team like this piloted at the high ladder. This is true gamers doing what they do best. We're up against a Darkrai, Cinderace, Great Tusk balanced team here with an Enamorous kicker. A Moongus you don't see every day. A decent regenerator wall, of course. Let's take a look at the battle. Leading off with the Pecharunt against the Darkrai, probably forced out. Indeed, forced out to the Clodsire, who takes a big knock off. That's a lot of damage from a physical attack of Darkrai. Clodsire can threaten a Toxic here, and a Moongus comes in to eliminate that possibility from happening. Goldengo going to very nicely switch in against a Moongus and shrug off a Stun Spore. Bronzong hitting the field against something. A lot of Momola with Body Slam trying to get a Paralysis, and Bronzong gets a nice Stealth Rock out there. In comes Chesnaught with its Rocky Helmet to chip the Alamomola as it clicks Body Slam. Goodness me. We're going to knock off, and Amoongus has Eject Pack. Interesting. For momentum play, going to do a nice pivot with that. Cinderace goes for the Court Change and takes a Malignant Chain as a result, inflicting Toxic Poison and confusing the thing. Goodness. Parting Shot to pivot out to Bronzong, and we've accepted the fact that Stealth Rock is on the field. I don't think that Wanawa's team here, also known as Sinessa, has any hazard removal, as far as I can tell. We're just relying on the Weavile with boots, and just tanking the hazard damage. Goes for a knockoff there, crucially getting rid of the Alamamola, which actually had an Assault Vest. That explains the Body Slam choice. Could be strapped for options and an Assault Vest Alamamola. You finally get the full para on the Chesnaught, which that could be a relevant detail. In comes Darkrai as Chesnaught is devastatingly full parried, but the body press comes down and eliminates Darkrai. Goodness me. Wow. Chesnaught taking out a Darkrai, that's a big moment for a fellow like myself. Earth Power crit is devastating on Clodsire. Clodsire would have stomached that better. Now Clodsire is dangerously low. Bronzong coming in, and Cinderace is the perfect switch in for opponent, threatening the Bronzong directly. Gonna U-turn out on the Pecharunt, and Enamorus is in now. Threatening a big Psychic type attack, or a Mystical Fire it is. A Mystical Fire. To the last little sliver. Pecharunt is in a commanding position. Parting Shot for a bit of momentum. Goldengo hitting the scene and threatening everything with Shadow Ball, I think. Pretty commanding position for Goldengo right now. Amoonguss running Leaf Storm, which makes some sense. That would hit pretty hard. Shadow Ball comes down and goes for the Make It Rain mid-ground, actually, which it does the trick against Alamamola anyway and would have covered something else coming in. Chesnaught is being thrown to the birds, and it's done a great job this game, taking out a whole Darkrai, walling some fellas. But for now, he must rest. And boy is he deserving of a rest. Boy is he. The triple axle will make quick work of this Amoonguss. I think that Sanessa here is in a pretty commanding position. The Ice Shard comes down to just deal a bit to Great Tusk. Interesting. I mean, you're down to sack Weavile, I suppose, when you're so ahead. Anyway, and how valuable is Weavile against the Cinderace? Wow, Enamorus manages to come in on a Bronzong Earthquake. But Bronzong going to Terra Ghost to be able to take less from the incoming Mystical Fire and strike back with Psychic Noise. Cinderace goes for the U-turn yet again. And I do believe that this one is a done deal. I don't see opponent coming back from this. The Terra Ground Headlong Rush does eliminate Goldengo, but now Bronzong can come in, and there is a sigh of relief as Great Tusk has expended the Terra. The opponent's last valued resource is gone, and with Great Tusk Terra Grounding, Bronzong can be confident that it 1v1s, it would seem. The Stone Edge was an astute move, dealing a bit more than expected to Bronzong. That actually might be a problem. But Pecharunt gets a pretty damn clutch Malignant Chain off. Great Tusk, am I stupid and this is a choice item the entire time? Because it's only clicking Stone Edge. It never occurred to me that Great Tusk could run a choice item. Maybe it outran something earlier. And now, of course, Headlong Rush will result in a defeat. As the final Malignant Chain comes down. Forgive me if I missed that Great Tusk being confirmed as choice item. Never would have thought of a choice scarf Great Tusk, but sure. I suppose that's a viable choice. Very well done from Sanessa there. Beautifully played. The Chesnaught took out an entire Darkrai. The Bronzong literally won the whole game there with its defensive prowess. The opponent had to really make some insane moves to even get any damage on the Bronzong there. But it prevailed. And the winner is decided. Chesnaught and Bronzong have made a name for themselves today as a duo. Chesnaught's a great combination of offense and defense. Positive matchups in the metagame, and a very felt absence of Ferrothorn. Favorable for its existence. Bronzong can say much the same. These two are now interlinked in a bond that will last centuries, but all will come crumbling down at the simple announcement of Ferrothorn's return to Gen 10. I'm sure that these two are doing all in their power to prevent such a thing from ever happening. As far as they are concerned, the absence of Ferrothorn is a blessing greater than the finest treasure in all the world. But we must not forget that Ferrothorn is a powerful Pokemon. Some say the most powerful OU Pokemon in history. And a powerful Pokemon has powerful friends, and Chesnaught and Bronzong have crossed a threshold that they cannot walk back from now. They have gone over a line that maybe they will regret stepping over for the rest of their days. For now, they revel in the success of a #1 ranked Gen 9 OU team. But for how long will the party last? The party must end one day, Bronzong and Chesnaught, and you must face the music. I only hope that you appreciate what you have while it lasts. And it will be fleeting, and you will be punished for what you've done. But for now, they're #1 in the world in Gen 9 OU. And who can take that away from these two who have fought and schemed so long for this moment? I hope it was worth it, is all I can say. I hope that when you meet your day of judgment, that you look at yourself in the mirror that they provide on such a day, and that you ask yourself that very same question. Was it worth it? Was it worth it? We will find out. In all seriousness, what a brilliant team and what an entertaining game we just watched. Shout out to Sanessa the Builder. Take a look at the Smogon thread with explanations not just of the Bronzong and the Chesnaught, but every other team member and other such information provided. This thread also features another team, a bonus team, which was a 5 Pokemon challenge. They ran a team with only 5 Pokemon on it and hit top 100 with that, which is also quite an achievement in itself. If you're curious about that, I urge you to take a look at this thread. It's quite a thing. Thank you for watching, folks, and I will catch you later.